West, y'all.
The thing that we know with our Pasifika especially is that we're not quite good at pitching ourselves. We either over pitch or we under pitch. But we also know that when you come into these roles where there's a huge demand for more Māori Pasifika, that you have to go through those particular points. You have to produce a CV, cover letter, and interview. And if your cover letter meets the standard and you get into an interview, we know also that we're not great at articulating and talking about ourselves. And we know why. It's just not in our nature. So what we created was trying to create what we call a safe space, safe place to be able to practice those things. And that's where the map came in. So the map came in after we recognized the work that we're doing, which was developing their CV skills, developing their interviewing skills, and sharing with them, this is what you need to be focused on. It wasn't until one student from MIT said to me, he said, Tagaloa, you told me to, make sure I, got my CV ready, and, I did, and even worked on, where what you've got, to the best of your ability, and you even shared with us, the sort of thing that you should be sharing, When I look in the mirror, I don't even see any of that. Worse, I don't even feel like that. And that's when I recognize, oh, shoot, well, there's a missing part to this, And it wasn't until my colleague Lisa said, oh, let's introduce you to the map of meaning. When we introduced the map of meaning, what that did was it actually focused on the things that are most meaningful to you as a Pacific Island or a Maori student. Things such as tikanga, alofa, fa'aloalo, things such as spirituality, culture, all the things, family, respect, all these wonderful and meaningful principles that we know within ourselves. But how do you articulate that in a non-Māori, non-Pasifika world or in a corporate setting?
Because I always felt there's a big clash.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, and we can't handle it.
No, or they can't handle it.
Yeah, they can't handle it because they don't understand.
Yeah, and so that's where the map came in. And so as we talked about those different areas, and each student would receive a map, and they would write in there what's meaningful to them. That's, for example, I'll just bring up on my phone here. So unity with others, or service to others. What does that mean? So when we talk about service to others, isn't it like, helping out at church, helping mum and dad, helping our ainga that are really need help with maybe babysitting their children or taking over food and so forth, or in the community, helping those that may be a little bit may not be as fortunate as us. Could be that we can provide some food, some blankets and so forth. And so as we went through each of these different quadrants and we talked about what's meaningless to you. That's really hard. We kind of talked to the students what that meant. And as they started to express what that meant, we then switched over and talked about what is meaningful to you. And that was much more easier, because when you can figure out what's meaningless, it's easier then to figure out what is meaningful. And we get our students to go through this, and it was a reflective exercise. It was a personal journey for them. So what you write and what I write, it's it, because it depends on where we are. But that was your journey that we would help you to uncover. And it also allowed them to be in touch with themselves, things that maybe we don't talk about it. If you think about the academic tunnel, there's no space in there for that sort of talanoa. There's no space in there to even have that chance to sit down and practice some of these things, because sometimes we're a little bit shy to be able to talk about what's really meaningful and to us. And so as we did this and spent time with them in the morning, we would take a break, and then afterwards we'd open up the floor and say, look, this is an opportunity for anyone who'd like to share their map. And as some of them would share their map, they were giving us permission to hear their world. And you would hear, as they talk about themselves, how other students would be connecting. And that's how I feel. That's me too. But unbeknownst to them, they didn't know that. You know, they didn't realize that some of the things that are so important to them were things that they may have thought, oh, it's just me. Or we reminded them, or we affirmed to them, these things that you have recognized and shared are things that are real to you. This is who you are. So when we talk about why did you want to be a nurse, it became, not to save the world and just to, because I need a job. It became more personal because you could use the map to uncover or share the depth of where you're coming from. And it could be, I saw my mum who was not well, and the nurses there were so loving and caring of my mum that it inspired me to want to be like you so I could help others in a similar situation. Or, I had a really terrible experience when these people were supposed to look after my dad, and I promised myself that when I become a nurse or a physio, that I would be the best nurse or physio, so that what my father experienced, they would never experience from me. And so there were these different reasons that came out, and I was part of this, and I saw how that was such a moving experience. So when we finished doing the map, we then had our mock interviews, and I had the hiring managers come in, and they would come in, and I would give our students, here's the questionnaire you give to your potential employer for them to ask you.
So who was the mock? Who were they?
So they were managers from the different parts of the DHBs, physio, nurses. They'd come in, and I'd said, let's do these mock interviews. So
and there were Palangis?
All Palangis, yeah. Hardly any Polys, And so when they had interviewed the kids, and I'd said to them, some of them never been interviewed, I said, it's okay, use your map to help you navigate those questions. I said, really? So yeah, take that in. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted them to experience before. Remember, you have to write a CV, you have to write a cover letter, you have to be interviewed. Those things you just can't get around. How they do it, in terms of what does it look like, that's different. But those are the things you have to do with any job. And so what we knew also is that because many of them would not do well in interviews because they never had the chance to practice these things or have the chance to do it in a place that was safe for them. This was something that was different that we wanted to do. And then at the same time, from an employer perspective, most of them never knew who these kids were because they were busy. It wasn't like we had 100,000 Polynesians graduating. There's only a handful, but by the time we got through the system, the only thing they saw was a CV, and they didn't know who they were. So by bringing them early in the piece, they could potentially see, here's the workforce that's coming through, and connect with these young people. And so we did that. When they went through the interviews, they were asking questions. So why do we want to be a nurse? They pull out their map, they look at it, and then they start talking about it. They did that for my last year with the DHBs. And when we finished that final year, 2018, and I did a little bit more in 2019, I asked the question of the employers, so how was that? And they said, man, that was amazing. I said, so what would you like to do? And they said, we wanted to hire all of them. I said, great. So what's stopping you? And they said, they're all first year students. And I said to them, isn't that amazing? So you can learn technical skills, but these things that we're talking about, this is the stuff that really counts. So you're telling me, as a potential employer, you would hire these guys based on the time that you've spent with them, who may not have those skills as a third year student, but you would hire them. And it was a testament of what we were doing. And so after I finished my contract with the DHBs and stuff, I took a time out and and only recently I've just come back into doing this. And it's sort of like, work on the side that I'm wanting to do because of the significance of the impacts that I've seen with our Pasifika people. When you can inspire them, but more importantly, they can connect with what is important to them, and they can talk about it because they realize that that's something that's me. Talk about my culture and my faith, and then be able to channel that so that it becomes part of who they are and their storytelling. And they ask, who are you? And they're sharing with them their beliefs as a Christian, their beliefs as a Muslim, Pasifika, their beliefs and their family. That's what employers want to hear. Is
That's
the
right.
real you. They don't want
That's
to hear,
right. That's right.
you know,
You got a degree and all that.
because everyone else has got the same degree, sort of thing,
Yeah.
West, y'all.